Hello, my name is Nadia Uhal, and I am the high school counselor here at California Area High School. I'm here today to share some academic tips for parents and guardians while you are learning to adapt with fully remote learning. We know that it's a challenge, and my hope today is that you will be able to leave this presentation with some ideas that you might be able to implement at home to hopefully help students be successful and facilitate their learning needs. So, the objective is to provide information and feasible, practical strategies and techniques to assist with students in grades kindergarten through 12. And the presentation topics include daily routine, class schedule, distractions, engagement, PowerSchool, communication, motivation, and contacts. I'd like to share a quote and a photo with you. And this quote is from Robert Frost, an American poet. And his quote is, "The best way out is always through." And I chose this picture because of the sun at the end of the road. And oftentimes when students come in with concerns, to validate those concerns, I would tell the students that we don't always get over something, whether it be a loss or a challenge or a hardship. However, we can work through it. And that's an encouragement that I would like to share with all of you who are watching this video. This COVID situation is a challenge for all of us, and it does present many losses. And in this case, it's a loss of normality for students and even for you at home, that now the home has become the place of learning. And with that, there are challenges. So when we work through something, what can we learn? Well, it certainly teaches resiliency, how to adapt to change. We also learn flexibility, we learn strength, we learn creativity and resourcefulness, and how we can take a situation and look at it and determine what positives are there, or what can I do that's different that might work. And so trial and error may be something that is applicable in this situation as you're learning to teach from home and facilitate your children. It may be teaching you patience, and that is certainly a part of character development. So what are the takeaways for parents and guardians? Well, first of all, you're learning perseverance. You're learning how to work through these hardships. You're also learning empathy through your experience. So you're learning what does and doesn't work in your situation, and you'll be able to share that with somebody else, another parent or guardian who may be experiencing similar situations with the remote learning. So one more quote that I'd like to share with you, again from Robert Frost. He says, "In 3 words, I can sum up everything I've learned in life. It goes on." And life will go on, and you'll continue to persevere, and you'll learn, and you'll remember that there is that sunshine, that there is hope. Let's talk about daily routine. So in situations of hardship, we often experience a sense of helplessness. We experience the sense of things are feeling like they're out of control. So if we were to ask ourselves, what can we control in a hardship, in a situation? And so if we're talking about daily routine, getting ready is something that can be controlled. And while sometimes the routine may change, maintaining a regular routine as much as possible at home is important for feeling as if a person's in control of the situation. So how do we do that? Well, self-care, getting up in the morning, grooming, changing clothes, getting mentally and physically prepared for the day. That's maintaining control of oneself, mentally and physically. Something to keep in mind for students is oftentimes they might not be cognizant of sleep times and wake times. So for a parent or guardian, it's often a challenge to get that student up in the morning or maybe to bed on time, but reinforcing a consistent wake and sleep time is important to maintaining that routine, because ultimately that will affect the students' mental well-being, so that they're not tired for their classes and that they're ready to give forth their best effort and learn remotely. The next thing that's a daily routine, part of the daily routine for students, is Google Classrooms. And I'm sure that parents and guardians have become very familiar with Google Classroom. And each day, students are expected to be in attendance online. And that attendance is taken daily by each teacher in grades kindergarten through 12. The student is expected to participate after logging in, whether it be through the Zoom or Google Meet if there's something live that's being presented, or if there's some type of a task or an assignment. That student needs to be sure that he or she is hitting the turn in button, specifically if that student is turning in something late, because that will be an indicator to the teacher that there is an assignment that has been submitted that needs to be graded. So that turn in button, especially for high school students, that signifies that there is an assignment that has been submitted. And that's very helpful to getting grades in promptly. So remember that turn in button. I know that students in grades 5 through 8 and their parents are aware of Class Dojo. So I would encourage you to make that a part of the daily routine, using that as communication means. Here at the high school, we have Trojan TV, which is a YouTube page that students, parents, and guardians can subscribe to. And our high school media team broadcasts daily announcements from home, and those videos are compiled into a daily broadcast. And we encourage the California community to stay informed by watching our Trojan TV YouTube videos. Lastly, students do have an email that is issued by the school district, and that email is the graduation year, the last name, and first initial of the student, followed by @calsd.org. Here's a visual for checking student email. Go to calsd.org, click on Students and Parents, and then the drop-down menu appears, and then the student clicks on Student Email. This is important to remember for checking email announcements, as well as staying in communication with teachers. Here's the class schedule that students are expected to follow throughout each day, Monday through Friday. This is the same schedule that students followed when we were in a hybrid schedule on Tuesdays and Thursdays, so they would be familiar with this class schedule. The school day starts at 10 a.m. for all students, and students in the high school are expected to follow their class schedule in half-hour increments. So at 10 a.m., they start. They do have a lunch break, and then period 8 ends at 3:10. So all students K through 12 are starting at 10 o'clock, following through their class schedule, and their day is over at 3:10. Attendance is taken each day for student participation in Google Classroom, and parents and guardians are expected to submit an excuse form when a student is unable to attend Google Classroom throughout the day. In PowerSchool, there are indicators to note the type of absence. NIC means not in class, UNX is unexcused absence, EXC is excused absence, and MED would be for medical absence. So parents and guardians can go to calsd.org, click on the Students and Parents tab again, and scroll to the bottom of that drop-down menu, and you would see Student Attendance Excuse Form. And this should be completed within 3 days of a student's absence in Google Classroom. Let's talk about distractions, which I'm sure is a major concern for students when they're trying to learn from home. So learning environment is important, and the recommendation of a sitting position at a desk or table can be very effective. However, there are situations whenever a student may learn better by sitting in a comfy chair versus sitting at a desk or a table. So this can be decided on a situational basis. Something that's important for a learning environment is to allow the student to make that learning environment his or her own. So if you look at the photo there in the middle, you see the little boy who's sitting and watching his laptop, and there's a trifold that is customized with different learning materials. And so that might be a feasible way for a parent or guardian to create a learning space and allow that student to customize that learning space, whether it be with markers or stickers or clips that are holding those items in place. Also, lighting is important. So if a student's maybe sitting in his or her room and they're laying on their bed or the lighting is dark, that obviously would lead eventually to the student getting sleepy or tired, and would not be the best learning environment for that student. So it would be important to keep the lighting fairly bright, to keep the student awake. And again, making it comfortable and personable for that student would be a recommendation. Keeping it organized is also a tip to maintaining that sense of control, because again, when we're finding ourselves in situations that make us feel helpless and out of control, we ask ourselves, what can we do to maintain that control? So organization is important to feeling a sense of control. And folders are good to use for different materials that the student may be referencing. So keeping it organized, keeping it clean is important for learning. Limiting electronics. So oftentimes parents are at work and the student is home alone, possibly on video games or maybe on social media. So consider limiting that screen time and providing the student with opportunities for breaks to use the gaming equipment or the cell phone. But again, if possible, limiting that screen time for personal reasons when it comes to electronics. And again, that will facilitate the focus in the Google Classroom. Lastly, a recommendation of a student using earbuds or earphones would be helpful if there are a lot of other siblings in the home, or maybe the parent is working, the guardian is working from home, and there's a lot going on throughout the day. So maybe it's not exactly feasible to find a quiet place. So therefore, the next option would be to have the student wear earbuds or earphones. And so those can be purchased at the dollar store. And that would certainly help the student to focus and to limit sound that would be distracting. This next part is one of my favorite parts, and it's engagement. So I hope to present you with some ideas, parents and guardians, for universal feasible strategies for engaging students while learning from home. Something to keep in mind is that students learn by way of a variety of styles, and that could be a combination of visual learning, auditory learning, and kinesthetic, which is hands-on learning. So these manipulatives, which I'd like to share with you, are even manipulatives which worked with my ninth graders for 9 years of teaching. And they might seem simple, but they are effective based on my experience, even with high school students. So one of the first things that I would recommend would be colorful writing utensils. Color coding is important. So if a student has an assignment online, taking that information and physically engaging with it by way of colorful utensils, that can be a way to stimulate the students. Or highlighters, different colored pencils, and keeping these out at the student's desk or wherever the student might be completing his or her assignments. That colorful visualization can be stimulating for the student and hopefully help to keep that student energized and excited about learning. Some other manipulatives which I would encourage would be sticky notes, and these can be purchased at the dollar store. So using these as reminders and posting those in the student's learning environment. That can be effective. And for high school students, maybe keeping inspirational messages on sticky notes and putting those around the laptop or Chromebook area would be a way to promote positivity. Something else to keep in mind, as mentioned before, using folders for organization, but maybe using colorful folders for putting those sticky notes in, or maybe keeping information written in a way that could help to promote excitement with learning. So colorful folders. Something else could be index cards, which are fairly inexpensive, and maybe for studying strategies, using those index cards for quizzing oneself with material, or just writing out terms and definitions and things of that nature, spelling words. Something else to keep in mind would be a little personal whiteboard. And these were one of my favorite manipulatives to use in the classroom because students enjoy writing on them, first of all. And secondly, it's easy to reuse them. So what I've done with this board is I've created an outline of concepts. And so a student might be given a reading assignment and that student struggles with reading, but to stop, to read a little bit, or to write down the headings or the titles or the subject topics in an outline concept would help with chunking the material, breaking it down. And again, now it's taking a break from the visual and it's making it kinesthetic by now making it physical engagement. And so that those intermittent breaks between the reading and the writing on the whiteboard could help to keep that student engaged. So personal whiteboards, again, they can be purchased at the dollar store, but can be very, very effective with engaging a student for any subject area, really. Planners and calendars can be a way to de-stress by taking what's in the mind and putting it on paper. I call them mind dumps because oftentimes students will come in stressed out about their workload. And so I tell them that they're stressing because they're trying to remember everything and it just becomes overwhelming. So I encourage students to get a planner or print out a calendar from the internet, or even draw a calendar and take those assignments and write them out on a calendar. And as those assignments are completed, crossing them off helps with motivation. It helps a person to feel like they've been productive. So I strongly encourage mind dumps on planners and calendars. And maybe for younger kids, or maybe even some of the high school kids, using stickers as rewards, as motivators to indicate the progress that's been accomplished. So as students are writing or doing their mind dumps and crossing those things off of their list, and again, using the colorful writing utensils, the highlighters, the markers, the colored pencils, they're motivating themselves by crossing things off of lists. I know that's how I work, and that's how my work day is. It starts with a list, and as I get through that list, I cross off my accomplishments, and then it makes me feel productive. And so I would strongly encourage that for students and even parents and guardians as well. Lastly, graphic organizers are very effective for comprehension. And so utilizing a graphic organizer is taking information and putting it into a visual format. So I have a few here that I would like to share with you. And again, these don't have to be printed. You can simply take, or the student can take, a piece of paper and draw this on a piece of paper or use the whiteboard. And so one of these graphic organizers is called a KWL chart, and the K stands for what do I know? What do I want to know? So questions about the information. And then what have I learned? So it's a way for students to process the information in an organized way. So a KWL chart can be effective. 5 W's chart, and I always like to add the how at the bottom. So asking 5 W's and how, the who, what, where, when, why, and how of the content. And that can be done in a horizontal graph. We have a Venn diagram, which can be used to compare and contrast differences and similarities with information. Next, we have a timeline. So maybe if a student is struggling with history or sequencing or events or cause and effect, so maybe a timeline would be helpful for that student. We have a tic-tac-toe graphic organizer. It just says write notes in each section. So again, making it visual. We have a story map where the student can actually write setting, the time, the place, characters, problem, plot events, and the resolution. So taking the story, making it tangible by writing out the information. Again, with some of those fun writing utensils. Here's one called an idea wheel. And it says label each section, then write or draw ideas in the section. So now we're getting into pictures. So maybe some students are artistic and creative and they can make that visualization through pictures. This is called a spider map. So taking a topic and branching off ideas so that it actually looks like a spider, and that could engage a student. We have a cluster word web. So this is similar to an outline, taking the main concept, branching off sub-concepts, and then branching off again additional information. So this is similar to outlining or chunking. Here's an ice cream cone, and this one just says write the topic on the cone and then add details with each scoop. So as something develops, adding scoops. Here's one that's a problem solution chart, writing the problem, writing the solution next to it. So that might be effective with a science concept. Here's a clock, and it says write details in time order in each section, and not all of them have to be filled in. So again, these are just some of the ideas. Here's a flow chart. Writing these out, making them visual could be something that you try at home, see if it works, and if it does, make that a practice. Let's talk about PowerSchool. PowerSchool is a wonderful tool that parents and guardians can use to stay informed of students' grades and to be notified whenever a student is not completing assignments. Parent Portal is available on the school's website, calsd.org, and there's actually a shortcut at the bottom of the page that says PowerSchool. Once a student or parent clicks on that, there's a login. Now, students are given their own access, and parents and guardians are given their own access so that the student cannot change a password and then disable a parent or guardian from accessing grades. So know that you do have your own access as a parent or guardian. So you need to sign in with the username and password. You can actually set up notifications. There's an app, and notifications can be set up so that anytime an assignment is completed or if a 0 is entered for an assignment, you could get an instant notification, and instead of finding out much later, that instant notification is an alert that can serve to keep you informed of your student, your child's progress. Now we have some symbols here. We have a late symbol, which is indicated by a red triangle, and we have a gold missing symbol. And those indicators will provide you, the parent or guardian, with information whether or not that assignment can still be completed for credit, or if there's this habitual occurrence that something is being completed late, that some things are being completed late. So again, keeping you informed as the parent and guardian is important for us and for you. And the last day of the quarters are important to note because whenever that time approaches, we find that students are, hurrying and scurrying to get work turned in and completed. But if that pacing occurs at a more appropriate pace, then the student's not getting overwhelmed. You're not getting overwhelmed because all of these things need to be done in a short period of time. Communication is so valuable in order to bridge the gap between home and school when it comes to remote learning. So be encouraged, parents and guardians, to check PowerSchool to set up those notifications. And if there's a question about something, please reach out to the teacher. Teachers' emails are last name, first initial at calsd.org. Teachers' emails are available by going to the COVID link and going down to the Google Classroom codes. You can see the teacher emails on there. Also, the main offices can be reached at 724-785-4685. 5800. The high school extension is 1200 and the elementary middle school is 2400. Staying organized is going to be very helpful with pacing the material and staying cognizant, staying aware of the expectations that the student has. And many students are actually submitting blank assignments and saying and telling parents that they submitted the work, which is partially true. However, that work was either incomplete or it was not complete at all. So maintaining that communication can help to lessen that frustration of not knowing. And again, please stay informed and please contact the teachers as necessary or the main office if additional help is needed with something. The last topic to discuss would be motivation. And as students find themselves disconnected from the school environment and normality, it tends to be an issue that they lack motivation. And two types of rewards that I want to talk to you about would be intrinsic and extrinsic rewards. Extrinsic motivation occurs through allowances and grades that are earned and things that a student is given, such as money or time on video games or time on cell phones. So those are extrinsic motivators. Our hope is that students produce based on intrinsic motivation, that they feel good for having been productive and they earn a sense of achievement and accomplishment and pride for what they're doing, so that those intrinsic motivators are what gives them hope and gives them determination and all of those other attributes that will help them in their post-high school endeavors. So they're learning those attributes throughout their experiences here, and those skills will help them to be successful, because while the extrinsic motivators can be very effective, they may not always be tangible. So how do we and how do you as parents and guardians develop the intrinsic motivation in your children? And the answer is through positive verbal reinforcement or positive comments. And those comments can be as simple as great work, or I knew you could do it. I am so proud of you for what you did. Those reinforcers help to build the self-esteem and the confidence in children. And then they appreciate that and they continue those good habits, those good study habits, those good performance habits. And that helps to develop a good rapport as well. One of the other ideas that you can implement with children is giving them a vision for their future, or talking about what is it that they want to be when they grow up. I often find that students might ask, why do I need to learn this? Or when will I ever use this? And so a part of my job is to help students visualize where they want to be and the steps that need to be taken in order to get to that point in their lives. So giving them that vision and helping them to accomplish those long-term goals by accomplishing short-term goals can help to provide that motivation. Visuals are effective as far as positive quotes or scripture verses, or even photos of maybe scenic places or places the student has been on vacation, or maybe even places in the community. Those visualizations can help to calm a student. Those visualizations can help to promote work ethic and motivation. And those can be placed in the student's learning area or on that trifold board that we talked about earlier, or around the student's Chromebook or laptop. And again, looking at those little reminders can help to keep focus for the student. Lastly, hobbies can be used as extrinsic rewards, as extrinsic motivators. So consider playing a game with the child if the child accomplishes a task or an activity or an assignment that particularly was maybe challenging for the student. Maybe consider rewarding with cooking or baking and making the child a part of that. Also, maybe getting outside or a visit to a community playground or being in the yard for a little bit when the weather's appropriate. Those could all be certainly be things that are used as rewards if the student completes his or her expectations when it comes to the assignments through Google Classrooms. Crafting could also be a reward, getting a student involved in something that is fun and enjoyable, and then using that as a motivator. So these are just some ideas to help to keep the student focused and motivated throughout this remote learning time. As I conclude this presentation, I first want to thank you for taking the time to watch this video. Hopefully, you've been able to take something from it that would be feasible to implement at home. And I do want to provide you with some contacts. Know that we are all here to assist. Administration, technology, PowerSchool, cafeteria, counselors, we're all here to provide you with whatever help that you might need while you are working through this remote learning time. So on the slide here, you see my email, uhauln@calsd.org. And you also see Ms. Schmieder's email. She's the elementary middle school counselor, schmiederc@calsd.org. Both of us would be more than happy to work with you to provide you with whatever resources you might need to help you and your family get through this trying time. And I do want to leave you with an encourager. Think positive. We're all in this together and we will get through. Thank you.